What's up, y'all? Welcome to Tabletop Bros. So we recently got 2 brand new combat patrols for the Imperial and Chaos Knights and the most recent White Dwarf. And in this video, we're going to be taking a detailed look at the Slaughter Talon Chaos Knight Combat Patrol. First, we're going to look at the combat patrol composition, the data sheets, and then the viability and rules of this as a combat patrol. Is it going to be fun? Is it going to be competitive? And how much money is it going to take to build this combat patrol? So the brand new Chaos Knights Combat Patrol is called the Slaughter Talon. It's composed of 2 Chaos Knight War Dogs. That means with the single box set of War Dogs, you're going to be able to build this combat patrol, which means just like the Imperial Knights, you're going to be able to play combat patrol for less than $100 MSRP. So there are 2 different data sheets for this combat patrol. The first one is Zarkus and Hellscar, but basically just a generic Chaos Knight War Dog with an Avenger Chain Cannon and Slaughter Claw. So you're going to have a move of 12, toughness of 10, a 3-up save, and then a 5-up invulnerable against shooting only. You're going to have 12 wounds, a leadership of 7+, and OC 8. You're going to have the core Deadly Demise ability, which means when you die, if you roll a 6, you'll explode, doing a D3 damage to any nearby units within 6. You're also going to have your faction ability, the Hunter Pack, and then you will bracket if you're down between 1 and 4 wounds, which means you're going to subtract 1 from your hit roll. You have 3 different weapons. First, you have the Avenger Chain Cannon, 24-inch range, 12 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 6, -1, 1 damage. You also have the Havoc Multi-Launcher, which is blast, indirect fire, 48-inch range, D6 shots, hitting on 3s, strength 5, 0 AP, 1 damage. The Havoc Launcher's blast ability means you're going to be able to get an extra shot for every 5 models in the defending unit. And then indirect fire means you can target models that you can't see, but you're going to be hitting on a 4 and they're always going to have cover. So pretty decent shooting profiles with a little bit of flexibility with the blast and indirect fire. And then you're also going to have some nice melee combat with the Slaughter Claw. You're going to have 4 attacks hitting on 3s at strength 12, -3, D6 +2 damage. So that means that this Chaos Knight is arguably the most efficient combat hunter in all of Combat Patrol. Basically, with a couple good rolls, you're going to be able to kill anything in the game in a single strike. But for balance purposes, you're not going to have your sweep profile that you would normally have with the Slaughter Claw. You're only going to have the strike profile. And also, you're going to be losing all of your normal War Dog abilities. But I think that's probably a good idea to bring some balance to these smaller games. And then next we have the second profile, Carthon and Firegeist. Again, this one is just a generic War Dog, this time a Brigand. You're going to have the same stat block with move 12, toughness 10, 3-up save, 5-up invulnerable save only against shooting. You're going to have 12 wounds, leadership 7, and OC 8. You're still going to have the Deadly Demise ability and the Hunter Pack faction rule. You are going to bracket when you're down between 1 and 4 wounds, subtracting 1 from your hit roll. And this one is designed primarily for shooting. So again, you're going to have the Avenger Chain Cannon, 24-inch range, 12 shots, this time hitting on 2s with strength 6, -1 AP, and 1 damage. And then you also have the Demon's Breath Spear, which is Melt of 4, 24-inch range, 2 shots, hitting on 2s, strength 12, -4, D6 damage. And with the Melta special rule, that means that if you're shooting at a target within 12 inches, you're going to add 4 to that damage. So you're going to do a minimum damage of 5 and a maximum damage of 10 per failed armor save with the Demon's Breath Spear. And with a movement of 12 and the small table size for combat patrol, it's pretty viable to think you're going to be able to move 12 and then get within 12 inches of just about anything, making this Chaos Knight Brigand one of the most efficient shooters in the entire combat patrol game. And then last but not least, for your shooting profiles, you're going to have the Diabolus Heavy Stubber, Rapid Fire 3, range 36, 3 shots, hitting on 2s, strength 5, no AP, 1 damage. And again, with the rapid fire rule, it means you're going to get 6 shots within 18 inches. So this thing is going to be able to pump out quite a bit of firepower. And then for the melee profile, you have the Armored Feet, attacks 4, hitting on 3s, strength 6, no AP, and 1 damage. So even though you're only getting 2 models in this combat patrol, both these models are going to be really good at doing what they're supposed to. You're going to have really nice shooting on both these knights, and then you're going to have some really nice melee profile on one of them. So let's take a look at the faction rules and all of your stratagems and how we're going to score points. Alright, so first for the special rules, we have the Hunter Pack. This combat patrol represents a highly specialized task force of War Dogs sent in to stalk, engage, and butcher the enemy vanguard. As such, its data sheets do not use the normal Chaos Knights faction ability, Harbingers of Dread, and it does not follow the usual rules when playing a combat patrol mission. You will not score any victory points for the mission's primary objectives, nor will you have a choice of secondary objectives. So focused are the Chaos Knights on the singular task, you will only be able to score victory points for the Ravening Onslaught objective, see opposite. So we'll take a look at that in just a minute. In addition, in your command phase, select one War Dog model from your army that is on the battlefield and select one of the following. So in your command phase, you'll have a choice of one of 3 abilities for one of your War Dogs to have. First, we have Hunter's Instincts. This model can make a normal move or fallback move of up to a D3 +1. So very nice. You can get a little extra bonus move, or you can fall back out of combat, leaving yourself unengaged to move normally in your movement phase. And then we have Killing Frenzy. Until the start of your next command phase, melee weapons equipped by models have the Sustain 2 ability. So this will be particularly effective on your melee knight with the Slaughter Claw, meaning if you score a 6, you're going to get 2 extra hits. And then next we have Infernal Restoration. This model regains 1 lost wound. So this is not particularly amazing, but if one of your knights is currently bracketed, being able to get up out of bracket and get rid of that -1 to hit is going to be really nice. So 3 really good abilities, very useful and very situationally efficient. Next we have your default enhancement, Frenzied to the Last. War Dog Stalker model only. If the bear is destroyed by a melee attack and has not fought this phase, roll a d6. On a 2-up, do not remove it from play. The destroyed model can fight after the attacking unit has finished making its attacks, and it is then removed from play. When making its attacks, the destroyed model is considered to have 1 wound remaining for the purposes of damage ability. So you'll be able to fight on death on a 2-up. This is only usable on the Stalker, and you are going to be considered bracketed when you're making these attacks, so you're going to need 4s to hit. But otherwise, pretty good. And then we also have the optional enhancement. So this is Feral Hunter for the War Dog Brigand only. So we have 2 bullet points at the start of your deployment army step. You can set the bear up in strategic reserves instead of setting it up on the battlefield. And then each time the bear is set up on the battlefield from strategic reserves, it can be set up anywhere on the battlefield wholly within 9 of 1 or more battlefield edges and not within 6 of 1 or more enemy units. When doing so, if the bear is set up within 9 of 1 or more enemy units, until the end of the turn, it is not eligible to declare a charge. So you're only going to be able to use this on your Brigand, but you can put them in strategic reserves. That means you're going to be able to show up on turn 2 or turn 3, but in a 4-turn game, this means that you're going to be losing out on the usefulness of one of your knights for one of the turns. So you'll be essentially losing about 25% of your output for one of your knights. And then when you set this model up, it's important to note you have to be 9 inches from a battlefield edge, but you can't be within 6 inches of an enemy unit. Normally you would have to stay outside of 9. But this special ability is going to grant you much more flexibility as to where to be placed. But if you do show up outside of 6, but not outside of 9, you're not going to be eligible to charge. So the Brigand is mostly going to be effective at shooting anyway. So the extra tactical flexibility for deployment is really nice when coming in from strategic reserves. But as we'll get into the stratagems, you may want to stay outside of 9 and just go for the long bomb charge, because you do have some stratagems that are going to allow you to be much more efficient in combat, even with the Brigand. So I think both these enhancements are really good, but based on like scoring points and efficiency, I think Feral Hunter is probably going to be the way to go. And then moving on from there, we have the default secondary objective, Ravening Onslaught. In your command phase, select 1 enemy unit that is not destroyed to be your primary quarry unit. Your opponent then selects 1 unit from their army that is not destroyed to be your secondary quarry unit. This can be the same unit. At the start of the next command phase, or at the end of the battle, whichever comes first, you score victory points as follows. 5 victory points if your primary quarry unit is destroyed, and 10 victory points if your secondary quarry unit is destroyed. So you'll get 5 victory points if you kill the unit you choose, you'll get 10 if you kill the unit your opponent chooses, and if you both choose the same unit, you're going to get 15 points. So pretty good, especially if you use the tactical flexibility of the Feral Hunter deployment to get into position to kill your secondary quarry unit. And then moving on from there, we have 3 stratagems. So first we have Infernal Rage, 1 command point, fight phase. Target 1 War Dog unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase. Until the end of the phase, improve the armor penetration characteristic of melee weapons equipped by models in your unit by 1. Add 2 to the attacks characteristic of the Slaughter Claw weapons equipped by models in your unit. And add 4 to the attacks characteristic of the armored feet weapons equipped by models in your unit. So even though the Stalker is your primary combat unit and the Slaughter Claw is its primary combat weapon, this stratagem actually makes the armored feet of the Brigand pretty good as well. So the Slaughter Claw is going to go up to AP 4 with 6 attacks, or if you use this on your armored feet, they're going to go up to AP 1 with 8 attacks, making either one of your knights an absolute force to be reckoned with in combat for 1 command point. Next, we have the Hunter's Stride, 1 command point, your movement phase. Target 1 War Dog unit from your army that has not been selected to move this phase. Effect, until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes a move, it can move through enemy models. When doing so, it can move within engagement range of enemy models, but it cannot end its move within engagement range of them. And any Desperate Escape test is automatically passed. So just like we saw for the Imperial Knights Combat Patrol, you're going to be able to move through enemy units. You could potentially leave combat without making a Desperate Escape test, although this is going to be less relevant because you already have the ability to leave combat in your command phase with your faction ability. But definitely a good stratagem if your opponent is trying to move block you from getting into combat. And then finally our stratagem, Lunging Strike, 1 command point. When your charge phase, 1 War Dog unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, your unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it fell back. When doing so, it must select at least 1 enemy unit that is not within engagement range of at the start of the turn to be the target of that charge. So you'll be able to fall back from combat, but you won't be able to shoot. You will be able to charge, but you can't charge the same unit that you fell back from combat with. So definitely some restrictions on this. And again, I think the Hunter's Instinct leaving combat in the command phase is going to be more beneficial, as you'll still be able to shoot and charge. But having the flexibility of these stratagems definitely makes the Chaos Knights a force to be reckoned with. The data sheets are very strong. The Hunter's Pack ability is very strong as well. Your enhancements are very strong. And using the Feral Hunter to pair nicely with your default secondary objectives is going to make scoring very good for this army. And then your stratagems are very flexible and very strong as well. So while you only get 2 models, you're going to get 2 really good models. And while I do think these rules are really nice and this is going to be super fun to play, I don't think this is going to be broken in Combat Patrol. I think certain matchups are going to be very beneficial to the Knights. I think other matchups, certain other factions and Combat Patrols are going to be able to deal with the Knights and probably have a very beneficial matchup. I think armies like the Space Marines with all their Terminators or the Necrons with their Canoptic Doomstalker are going to be able to make short work of a Knight if positioned well. I think much like the existing Combat Patrols, it's going to be a lot of rock, paper, scissors. Tactical movement, positioning, and target selection is going to be very key for winning games or defeating the Knights. I think the Imperial and Chaos Knights are going to pair really nicely into each other, and I am definitely looking forward to putting both of the new Combat Patrols on the table. So let me know what you think of the new Imperial Knights Combat Patrol, the Chaos Knights Combat Patrol, and what do you think about being able to get just 2 models and spending less than $100 to get into Combat Patrol? If you enjoyed today's video and got any value out of it, hopefully by now Tabletop Bros has earned your subscription. And if you haven't checked out the Imperial Knights breakdown for the new Combat Patrol, make sure to click on the thumbnail link at the end of this video. So yeah, that is it for the Slaughter Talon Chaos Knights Combat Patrol. I am definitely looking forward to this and the Imperial Knights Combat Patrol. But that's it from the Tabletop Bros. Later!